This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Welcome to My Business Stars, a podcast series featuring conversations with disabled business owners telling their business stories. Hosted by the Disability Business Network. Kia ora, I'm that blind woman Julie Woods from the Disability Business Network, host of My Business Stars. And today we are joined by another founder of the Disability Business Network, Selwyn Cook. Welcome, Selwyn, to My Business Stars.
Thank you, Julie. Great to be here and being on the microphone with you. What an honour.
I thought we'd take a wee pause there because I was about to launch into your many roles and the reason you're coming to us today. You are a not yet disabled business owner. You've been in business for many years. You're a disability employment champion and an employer ambassador for Workbridge and a winner of the Aotearoa Employers Award as well in 2014. You come with all this experience in terms of disability employment, and I just wanted to get that out there for everybody to know about so that we kind of know where this interview is ending up. And I guess really we could say, where did it all begin? When did the business ventures begin, Selwyn?
Well, thank you, Julie, for that intro. It was a bit of a walk down memory lane there, the way you spoke then. So the Attitude Award was a very special time of my life and of my business career, I must admit. So that was good to be brought back in time to that place because that was special. I guess it would be a good 35 years now I have been in business. And I started off a number of years ago, well, that was 35 years ago, with my wife at the time. And we decided that Wellington was not really where home was going to be permanently. And we decided we want to get into our own business and move out of the corporate world that I was in and return to the mighty Waikato. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that, is what I say.
Given.
So I was working for a oil company at the time in Wellington, and it was the beginning of a great career, I know. However, the call to become self-employed, the call to return to family was pretty strong, and there was I'm sorry, I've just got a little distraction. I didn't plan for a person knocking at the door and not being able to raise me, so I'm trying to shoo her away, so I do apologise. So we had the opportunity to purchase a service station business, which was of interest to us way back in the early 90s. And we were able to move back to Hamilton and start our business. And the business went well in our little service station in one of the main streets of Hamilton City. It was a wonderful time to be in business and in partnership with, at the time, Shell Oil. And with that, we were able to grow our business to a number of sites. In fact, at our peak, we had 18 service stations across the Waikato. And so our business had grown to be something quite considerable in terms of we employed 200 staff. We had 7 different towns and cities across the Waikato and Rotorua City, and all the thrills and spills that go with running a 24-hour service station network. So it was a great time, and I just hugely loved it. However, we had one problem, and that was the high turnover of staff. And with 200 staff, about 50% of them leaving us every year, that was a big number, a big cost, a big amount of noise within our business, and a huge amount of investment into training and onboarding. I was the chief executive of our little empire, so it was my job to sort that out and find a solution. So I did what I did with all of the big, hard decisions I had to make in my business. I popped it in the too hard bin because I just didn't have a clue on how we were going to fix this turnover of business. It was not something unique to our business. It was something common to the service station business at the time. It was a stepping stone employment opportunity. People came and went within our business and the industry, and that was an expectation. But it still was a big deal and a frustration to our teams with high turnover of staff, and also our customers who weren't really sure who was going to be serving them the next time they came in. So I'm telling you this story just to build up the context of our introduction to the talent pool that sat, but as we know, resides in the disability disability community. One day there was a knock at the office door. It was a very rare day in Hamilton. The rain was horizontal and the leaves were blowing, and it was a cold, chilly winter's day. Something that you would be accustomed to in Dunedin, I'm sure, Julie. The doorbell rang at our inaccessible office at the top of an old service station. And by the time I got to the door, there was a job seeker who was standing there drenched because of the weather, exhausted because of his climbing the stairs on his crutches. He had obviously health and disability issues, but a huge infectious personality. He rang the doorbell with his chin because he just couldn't maneuver himself and at the time to use his arms, and he was exhausted and drenched, as I said. So Chris was standing there, and he proceeded to tell me that he would like to work for me. And while he was saying that, I was forming his dismissal in the back of my mind, because surely he had rung the wrong doorbell. You know, working in a service station was standing on your feet all day, of which Chris only had one. They were 8 to 10 hour shifts, much too long for someone who had a disability. And there was all sorts of customer service and toilet cleaning and stocking shelf requirements. Surely, Chris, you had rung the wrong doorbell. I proceeded to tell him that in the nicest possible way. And he said, "That's all very well, Mr. Cook, but I'd still like to work for you, and I'd like 5 minutes of your time to explain why." I didn't know what to do then, so I let him in, and he gave him the 5 minutes that he wanted. That turned into 8 years. Chris convinced me very quickly that he was going to be a shining star within our business, and that he was. Very quickly, he became the most valuable team member in the team and at the service station that he worked at. He was very capable in doing all the things that we asked of him to do in terms of the duties. He did his housekeeping. He did his customer service. I'd seen him out on the forecourt with a bonnet resting on his head as he, on his crutches, was underneath that bonnet checking someone's oil and water. I saw him walking out one day, juggling his crutches and an umbrella on that second rare day that year in Hamilton where the rain was horizontal, as he escorted the customer to their car and keeping them dry with the umbrella because the rain was coming in under the forecourt canopy. He cleaned, he merchandised, he had a wonderful personality with the customers. He was everything we could have asked for. And yet I flippantly tried to dismiss him because of my first impressions that I had formed that disabled people were not going to be able to work in our business. My wife at the time, and I do say at the time because I have since remarried and sadly lost my first wife to cancer, and that was when we ended our business, when it was all time, or that business all time, hands on deck to try and save her. But before that time, we had decided that we needed to correct the wrong that we had done, because as Shirley, my wife at the time, and I sat down and discussed that how flippant we had been in all the years in business to dismiss now the 24% statistically of the job seekers that came and wanted to work for us. How we had, not by an unconscious bias, but conscious bias when we had formed these opinions and were very clear in our mind that disabled people could not work in our service station business. So we wanted to correct that. So we went out and targeted the disability community and said, send us your job seekers and they will be our first choice for the roles we have. We went to Workbridge and we employed over 80 Workbridge job seekers in the next 3 years. We went to Aotearoa, employed some of their people. We even went to the Blind Foundation, Blind and Low Vision New Zealand as it's known now, and employed some of their people to work in our service station. One of them, Julie, has been on our recent My Business Starter program. Craig used to work for us. So it was absolutely an eye-opener in terms of the talent pool that sat within the disability community. And very proudly, we were then able to embrace that talent pool and bring these people into our business. It was not just, or not even, a nice thing to do. I was running a business. I had to make it successful and profitable, so we were able to maintain our profitability and be and survive in the tough world of business. It was a smart thing to do because for all the other benefits that came with employing people from that talent pool, one thing they brought was stickability. So the high turnover in business reduced considerably, and we noticed that on our bottom line, because the cost of turnover is huge on what you can measure around training, uniforms, all those sort of things, but also those costs that you can't easily measure was, the experience and skills that were lost when staff left, experienced staff left, and new ones had to take time to develop those skills. So all of that was improved upon when we made this conscious decision, which I think has probably led to that attitude award, Julie, because it was a great insight and great to be able to share that.
I was going to say that Chris was your teacher, and what did he teach you? I think you've probably answered that, but is there anything you'd like to add to what Chris taught you?
In spite of Chris's, or in addition is a better word, to Chris's ability to do his job, Chris became the go-to guy for the site. So when any of the other staff, the so-called non-disabled or the not yet disabled, as you talk about, Julie, or the temporarily able, when they got the call, or when they phoned on Monday with man flu or with Monday morning itis, or I don't want to do this job anymore on a Friday afternoon or whatever, Chris would often get the call. And more often than not, Chris would say yes, in spite of what he'd done before. He'd hop on the bus, he'd come down to the service station, and he'd work another 8 or 10-hour shift with someone else who had some sort of itis and couldn't do it. Chris very much was the beacon, I guess, around not only the ability of disabled people to work, but what they brought in some of those other areas of school. Chris had worked for a long time to try and get a job, and no one was giving him an opportunity. And I had lots of stories like this, Julie, where people talked about they just were never given an opportunity. We were conscious in our decisions around giving disabled people opportunities, and we reaped the rewards accordingly. And a lot of these people were so committed to their roles. I'm not going to say they were grateful to get a job, because we were the ones who were benefiting from them working with us, and grateful to get a job is not appropriate. They were wonderful staff, and part of their wonderfulness was their commitment to their role because of how much they appreciated it, how good they were at it, and how they became ingrained into the team where they wanted to support the site that they were working at. So that was not just their ability, Julie, but their commitment to the job was something that was a real learning that Chris taught us.
And the benefit of that I see in you is this utter belief in disabled people that you have brought into not just disability employment, but disability self-employment. So what is it you think that disabled people bring to self-employment?
Many disabled people, in my view, and I guess our working together through the Disability Business Network, Julie, and the My Business Starter programs, just highlights the shining lights that they are, the talents, the skills, in many cases, the gifts that they have, just waiting for the opportunity to shine and to show and to develop their work idea to be given a chance in an equitable society. And I know I am just continually amazed, and I don't want to use we, Julie, when you're sitting there, of course, but as one of the facilitators who work with you, Julie, and with Sandra, I just am constantly amazed at the talents and the skills of the people who we see on the programs and what they deliver in terms of their own business. And it's just a delight and another one of those eye-opening insights that I take on to that the being disabled is not a barrier. It's we, again, the non-disabled or the society and all the things that means that puts up barriers to people who live with impairments being successful. And that was something that I was so conscious of that I had done in my business for so many years, flippantly sending people on their way because they were disabled when they wanted to work for me was just, it was the only word is wrong. And I wanted to correct that in the employment situation and also now carrying on doing my bit to try and help put the spotlight on these wonderful, talented people.
Because I think the remarkable thing about your story, Selwyn, is that you noticed and you caught yourself and then you acted upon that. And I think often that's what a lot of us don't do. It might fleetingly go through our minds, but then we kind of let it go. You face the uncomfortable, I guess. And in doing so, you did that head on. And that's what I love about what you've talked about today.
Well, again, Julie, it was a smart decision as a business owner. When there's many opportunities in business, particularly now in these eras of rapidly evolving technology, that can change instantly the way we do business and see business, and we need to grasp those moments and those learnings to move with them and to keep our businesses where we want them to be. Our business had 5.5 million customer interactions a year. Millions of customer interactions a year. And we were a people business. While it was all about petrol and oil and pies and coffee in the later years and those sort of things, it was very much a people business because of the interactions between our customers and our teams. And being able to appreciate the wonderful people that sit in that talent pool of the disabled category, if that's a way to describe it, which is not, was valuable, smart thinking for a businessman. That was my thinking. So it was there to be embraced. And, proudly and happily we did embrace it from the human side, but it was also smart from the business side. And I sit here today just so proud of everything we did and the success that it brought our business.
What message would you have to other employers?
And you did speak, Julie, by way of an introduction, that I'd worked as the employment ambassador for Workbridge, and that was a fabulous opportunity for 4 years as well. And for the last 5 years, I have been working with employers as well, advocating and supporting disabled people following their pathway of choice into employment. So the job seekers were developing their pathway to get a job that they wanted to do. And then I was out there following their lead to engage with employers to create the employment opportunities. In the conversations through all those different roles that I had, there was just a huge amount of willingness and wanting to do this. What was missing in so many of those occasions was moving that willingness and want into action. So my message to employers, particularly, around the employment of disabled people, that there is real smart business reasons to consider the talent pool. What you need to do then is go after it. And I'm certainly not one for quotas and all those sort of things, which happen overseas in many ways to try and get people into action around the employment and advancement of disabled people. But I am in favour of targets, because in business we have targets for everything. So set yourself some targets. You're going to get after 3 disabled people this year, for example, to work in your business, and go for it. So that's the one thing I would say. Secondly, this is a leadership thing. It's not an HR thing. Often the HR teams or team or person who's been delegated this role doesn't have the context and the understanding of the bigger picture where for the business case that the leadership team have. So drive it from the leadership team and not the HR team.
Wow. Thank you, Selwyn. What a great note to end on. We've reached the time where we have to say thank you to you for sharing your story and your wisdom and your experience. That was just astonishing to hear. So you've been listening to My Business Stars with Selwyn Cook. Thank you, Selwyn.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. Goodness, that time went quick.
It certainly did.
I thought we just finished the introduction.
Thank you. You've been listening to My Business Stars, hosted by that blind woman, Julie Woods, in partnership with the Disability Business Network and CCS Disability Action. Thank you, and we look forward to having you back here to join us for the next episode. The Disability Business Network is the only business network in Aotearoa, New Zealand, dedicated to business owners who live with an impairment. If you are disabled, own your own business, and would love to mix with people who look like you, then join us today at the Disability Business Network. You can find us at disabilitybusinessnetwork.org, or you can contact that blind woman, Julie Woods, on 021 913 513, or email julie@thatblindwoman.co.nz. At the Disability Business Network, we believe in disabled people being successful in their own businesses and becoming business stars.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.